December 1981. A raft of lashed-together logs slams sideways into a rock in the middle of a Bolivian river, and the two young men riding it are thrown into the white water. One of them, a 21-year-old Israeli named Yossi Ginsburg, goes under. He surfaces once, gasping, clawing at a bank that is already sliding out of reach. Then the river bends over a waterfall and swallows him whole. He comes up alone, bloodied, on a strip of nameless jungle with no trail, no shelter, and no other human voice within 100 miles in any direction. Now jump forward 3 weeks. A boat is moving down that same river. On the bank stands a thing that used to be a man, skin pulled tight over bone, eyes that no longer quite focus, a body that weighs almost nothing at all. He has not eaten in days. By every reasonable measure, he should have died 2 weeks ago. And he did it with no knife, no gun, no map, no compass. A lighter and a small can of insect repellent. That was the entire arsenal against the largest rainforest on Earth. Against a jaguar in the dark. Against a flood that very nearly drowned him. Against a search party that flew directly over his head and never saw a thing. 4 men walked into that rainforest chasing a stranger's promise of gold. Not all of them would walk back out. So how does a kid with no skills and a can of bug spray survive 21 days alone in there? And what happened to the men who went in with him? To understand the river, you have to go back to the lie. And the lie begins in a bar in La Paz, months before anyone gets near the water. Yossi Ginsburg is 21. Israeli, fresh out of his military service, broke and restless in the specific way of a young man who has read too many adventure stories and wants one of his own before he goes home and turns ordinary. For a year, he has been drifting through South America with a backpack and almost nothing else. No jungle training, no medical training, no real skills to speak of. He is exactly the kind of person this story should kill. In La Paz, he falls in with 2 other travelers. Kevin is an easygoing photographer, relaxed, broad-shouldered, the steady one. Marcus is a gentle schoolteacher, soft-spoken, the sort of man who apologizes when other people bump into him. 3 strangers, bound by nothing but the same itch to see something nobody back home has seen. Then Carl walks in. Carl Ruprechter is older than the rest, calm in a way that reads as wisdom. He says he is a geologist. He says he has spent years in the Bolivian interior. And he tells them a story so good it sounds rehearsed. An uncontacted tribe hidden deep in the rainforest, a river few outsiders have ever traveled, and gold sitting in the gravel of those riverbeds, waiting for anyone willing to walk in and take it. Gold and a lost tribe. For 3 young men starving for a story, it is everything. None of them has any real history with Carl. None of them checks whether a single word of it is true. The only man who claims to know the jungle is the one person nobody can vouch for, and they are about to follow him past the edge of every map they own. They buy supplies. They board a truck, then a smaller boat, and push deep into territory where the trees close overhead like a ceiling. For the first few days, it is the dream. Macaws overhead, monkeys in the branches, rivers like green glass. Then the dream starts to rot. The walking gets harder, the food runs thinner, tempers fray in the heat, and the jungle goes looking for the weakest of them. Which of the 4 would crack first? It's Marcus, the gentlest man in the group, the soft-spoken schoolteacher, and the first to fall. His feet go first, the constant wet, the marching, the cheap boots. The skin softens, blisters, splits, and every step becomes its own small punishment. He falls behind. He needs to stop, and the group, already low on food, is now moving at the pace of its weakest man. When the supplies run out, they shoot a monkey to survive. They roast it over a fire, and for Yossi and Kevin, hunger settles the question. You eat because the alternative is worse. But Marcus can't. He looks at the small, almost human body curled in the coals, and something in him refuses. He won't touch it. So he gets weaker while the men around him are forced to become harder. They try to push overland, deeper, toward Carl's promised river. The terrain beats them back. Exhausted, half-starved, they retreat to the bank of a fast canyon river. And that is where the whole thing finally comes apart. The plan was always to run that river. Standing at the edge of it, Carl says the thing that detonates everything. He can't swim. He won't go on the water. The geologist, who has supposedly spent years in this jungle, is terrified of the river he led them all the way to. Every story about the gold, the tribe, the years in the interior collapses into that one admission. The expert was never an expert. They had bet their lives on a stranger's confidence, and the confidence was the only thing he ever actually had. So the group splits. It is the only thing left to do, and it is the worst possible thing they can do. Carl and Marcus will take the safe way, back overland, on foot, away from the water. Yossi and Kevin, the two who can swim, will build a raft and ride the river, which is faster, and try to reach a village downstream. They agree to meet again. They set a place and a date, by Christmas. Two paths out of the same canyon. Which one led back to the world? No one standing on that bank knew. Marcus, his ruined feet wrapped in rags, limps off after Carl into the trees. The goodbyes are quick and thin. None of them will say out loud how frightened they are. Then the leaves swing shut behind Carl and Marcus. Keep them in mind. This story will return to the path they chose. Yossi and Kevin lash their logs into a raft, shove off, and ride the current downstream toward a sound that is building somewhere ahead into a roar. Neither of them knows what is making it. They are about to find out. For a while, the river is mercy. It carries them fast, and fast is exactly what they need. Then the canyon narrows. The water stacks up into rapids. The raft stops being a vehicle and becomes a problem they cannot solve. They fight it. They jab at the rocks with branches, screaming over the noise of the water. And then the current drives them broadside into a boulder. The logs buck and twist, and both men are thrown. Kevin is closer to the bank. He grabs for it, hauls himself half out of the water, and turns to find Yossi. Yossi is already gone. The current has him. It drags him toward the place the roar was coming from, and then the riverbed simply drops away beneath him. He goes over the falls. He remembers the plunge, the impact, the water closing over his head and holding him down longer than his lungs can stand. And then, somehow, the river spits him out into calmer water, and he drags himself onto a rock, coughing, alive. Alive, but not okay. Because when he looks back upstream, the truth arrives in pieces. He is on one side. The falls are between him and where he last saw Kevin. The water that just nearly killed him is now a wall neither of them can cross. He shouts. He hears nothing back but the river. He doesn't give up on Kevin, not at first. For 4 days he works his way along the bank, leaving notes pinned where a person might find them, calling out, scanning the far side until his eyes ache. 4 days of hoping. 4 days of a river that answers every shout with the same indifferent noise. And slowly the thing he cannot say out loud becomes undeniable. He is alone, truly, completely alone, in a jungle the size of a country, with no one coming. He has almost nothing. A little food, a lighter, a small can of insect repellent. He decides his only chance is to walk to a place Carl had once mentioned. Cruelty, an old gold mining camp downriver where there might be people, shelter, food. He reaches it after a brutal march, and Cruelty is empty. Abandoned huts, no people, no rescue. A little leftover rice he scrapes together that will not last. But was Yossi truly the only one left alive out here? On the far side of that waterfall, Kevin was making a choice of his own, one that would decide whether Yossi ever left this place. That night, Yossi lies down in the dark of the empty camp and tries to sleep. Around the 6th night alone, something wakes him. Something is moving out there, close, quiet, circling the place where he lies, slow and deliberate in the dark. Something has found him. He can't see it. That is the worst part. He flicks his lighter and the small flame throws 2 points of light back at him out of the black, eyes low to the ground, 12 feet away. A jaguar. The apex predator of the entire Amazon, the animal that other animals run from, standing at the edge of his camp and watching him the way you watch something you intend to eat. He has no gun, no knife worth the name, no tree he could climb fast enough. He is a starving nobody the jungle has decided to solve. And then he remembers what else is in his hands. The can of insect repellent. He brings it up in front of the flame, presses down on the nozzle, and a jet of fire roars out into the dark. A crude, sputtering flamethrower, the most desperate idea a frightened mind ever had. The light blooms. The eyes flinch back. The jaguar melts into the jungle. It works. He is shaking, soaked, heart slamming against his ribs. But it works, and for one fierce moment, the weakest creature in that whole forest has won something. Except the jaguar doesn't really leave. Morning after morning, he finds the proof. Paw prints in the soft ground, fresh, pressed into the earth a few feet from where he slept. It is still here. It is patient. It is simply waiting to see how long the strange burning animal can keep this up. And the answer is written on the side of the can, because the can is not full. Every time he lights it to push the dark back, a little more of it hisses away, and there is no second can, no resupply, nothing behind it. His only weapon against the most dangerous animal in the jungle is a few ounces of pressurized liquid that gets lighter every single night. How many nights of fire did he have left? He doesn't get to finish the count. Because the sky, gray and low for days, finally opens. This is the kind of rain the locals will later call the worst weather in a decade. And Yossi is standing directly under it, alone, the river already climbing past his ankles. The jaguar had hunted him slowly, night after night. The river comes for him, all at once. The water comes for him in the night. A flash flood gives no warning. One moment the river is licking at his ankles. The next, a wall of brown water and torn vegetation is tearing down through the forest. It rips Yossi off his feet and carries him, slamming him into trunks, pulling him under, letting him up, pulling him under again. He swallows water. He claws at branches that break off in his hands. There is a stretch where he is simply drowning, turning over and over in the dark, and the only reason he doesn't is that the flood eventually flings him into shallower ground. He drags himself out, and the earth swallows his legs. It's a bog. Soft, sucking mud that grips him to the thighs and pulls down, and for a horrible stretch he is certain this is how it ends, sinking slowly into the ground until it closes over his face. He fights free. Barely. And when he finally stands on solid land again and looks around, the last cruelty lands. Everything he knew is gone. The flood has rearranged the world. The banks, the shapes, the landmarks he had used to keep himself oriented, washed flat, rewritten. He is back to nothing, worse than nothing. And this is the moment to leave him there, gasping in the mud, because something has been happening that Yossi has no way of knowing. Kevin is alive. On the far side of that waterfall, Kevin had hauled himself out of the water and started searching for Yossi instead of saving only himself. He worked the bank until his own feet rotted inside his boots, calling, looking, refusing the obvious conclusion. And when searching alone became impossible, he did the only thing that could still help anyone. He got himself out. He rode a fallen log down the river, out of the canyon, until a group of indigenous men spotted him in the water and hauled him to shore. He reaches a town. He starts pulling on every thread he can find. Anyone with a boat, anyone with authority, anyone who will listen to a foreigner insisting his friend is still out there. And somewhere in that scramble, a detail surfaces that turns his stomach. A consulate tells Kevin the truth about the man who led them in. Carl was no geologist. The name belonged to a wanted man, someone who was not, in any single particular, who he had claimed to be. So now you know what Yossi cannot. A search is beginning. A friend is fighting. Somewhere out there, hope is real. But hope and rescue are not the same thing. And the jungle, having failed to drown him, is about to start dismantling his body piece by piece. Can a search find one man in all of that green before there's nothing left to save? Starvation has a shape, and by now Yossi is wearing it. The body, with nothing left to burn, has begun burning itself, muscle first, then everything after. And a man who was never strong to begin with is becoming a frame with skin draped over it. And the jungle, sensing weakness, moves in close. It gets into him. Insects lay their eggs under his skin, and the larvae grow where he can feel them moving. He wakes one morning to find he has been sleeping on a termite nest. Leeches find him in the wet. This is what the rainforest does to a body that has stopped fighting back. It moves in from a dozen directions at once and quietly makes him part of itself. His feet are the worst of it. The endless wet has rotted the skin until walking is its own agony, every step landing where no step should ever land. And his feet are the whole problem. Because feet are how a man walks himself out of a place like this, and his are failing. The pain grows so constant, so total, that he goes hunting for a louder pain to bury it under. He finds a tree trunk crawling with fire ants. He shakes them down onto his own head and lets them bite, because being eaten alive somewhere new is, for a few minutes, easier than feeling his feet. He is, by now, well past 2 weeks in. The Jaguar is behind him, the can nearly spent, the fall's a memory. He can barely walk. He is running out of the one thing he cannot improvise, the ability to carry himself. And then, on the 17th day, he hears it. Faint at first, then unmistakable. An engine up there, somewhere above the canopy. The drone of a small plane, the exact sound a person dreams about when they are lost. The sound of the world remembering you still exist. It is directly overhead, and the canopy he is standing under is 100 feet of solid green. How does a man on the ground reach a plane that cannot possibly see him? He does everything a person can do. He waves. He screams himself raw. He tries to make himself bigger than he is. A single starving man under a roof of leaves 100 feet thick. The plane crosses the sky, and it keeps going. It doesn't bank. It doesn't circle. The canopy that has been smothering him for weeks does the one job it has left. It hides him perfectly, and the sound of the engine thins and fades and is gone. And the silence that comes back afterward is worse than any silence before it, because now he knows. They were looking, and they could not see him. Something in him starts to come loose after that. His body is still moving. It's his mind that begins to go. The next day, he is not alone anymore. There is a girl with him, a young woman walking beside him, keeping him company, and he is so grateful for her that he barely thinks to ask where she came from. She stays. For 2 days she stays, and he talks to her, and he builds a little camp meant for two, clearing a space, tidying it, making it nice, because she is there and he wants her to be comfortable. Then he turns and reaches out to hold her, and there is nothing there. There was never anything there. His starved, exhausted brain had manufactured her out of loneliness and hunger, a hallucination so complete that he had built a home for it. And the instant he understands that, a new kind of terror arrives, colder than the Jaguar, colder than the flood. The terror of a man who can no longer trust his own mind. If she wasn't real, what else isn't? And then it gets lower still. He stumbles into a second bog and cannot climb out. Mud to the chest, strength gone, and lying there, trapped, half out of his head, he thinks about letting it simply be over. It would be so easy. Stop fighting. Let the ground have him. No one would ever know. Why keep crawling? No rescue coming. His feet gone. His own mind turning against him. And then a stubborn, stupid argument forms in the wreck of his mind. If he were going to die out here, he tells himself, he would have died on the first day. He didn't. 20 days in, with rotting feet and a breaking mind and no good reason left to keep moving, he is still here. The dying would already have happened. It hasn't. So he is not going to lie down and finish the job for it. He claws himself out of the bog. Hand over hand on a body that is mostly bone now, he drags himself onto a riverbank and collapses, unable to take one single step more. He has decided to live, and the decision is about to matter more than he could possibly know, because a boat is already fighting its way up the river toward him. Lying on that bank with nothing left, Yossi believed he was the last person in the world who knew he was still alive. He was wrong. The plane had been Kevin's idea. Fly the river, spot Yossi from the air, end it fast. That was the engine Yossi heard pass overhead. And it failed for the reason every search of that jungle failed. From above, the Amazon is one unbroken roof of green, and a man beneath it might as well not exist. The flights found nothing. By every rule of probability, that was supposed to be the end. Days gone, no sign. A foreigner almost certainly dead. Kevin would not accept it. If the sky couldn't find Yossi, he would go back up the river itself, the same water that had nearly drowned them both. In a small boat, with a local boatman named Tico, pushing upstream into the exact stretch of jungle that had swallowed his friend. It was a fool's errand and everyone knew it. 3 days in, with no trace of anyone, they were ready to turn back for good. On the bank, Yossi hears an engine. This time, the sound rides the water itself, low and close. His first thought is that his mind has finally broken all the way. It built a girl out of nothing and made him keep house for her. Now, it is building a boat. Was this real, or was it the girl all over again? He doesn't lift his head. He has learned the hard way not to trust the things his own brain hands him. But the engine doesn't thin and vanish the way the girl did. It gets louder, lower. It gathers into something with weight and direction, an actual machine shoving actual water. And through a gap in the trees there is a hull and a man standing in it. The current in that stretch ran too hard for a small boat to stop and come about. Kevin and Tico simply could not turn against it. The river carried them farther upstream than they had ever meant to go, past the point where they had already half decided to quit, and set them down out of all the endless miles of that endless bank, within sight of the one place where Yossi lay. Kevin looks at the water's edge and sees a shape in the mud. What's lying there barely reads as human. Knees and elbows and a skull wrapped in gray skin, the eyes sunk deep in the sockets. It looks like something the river threw away. Then the shape moves. It pushes itself up onto its arms. Its mouth works, and a cracked sound comes out, almost nothing, a sound straining to be a word. It is a name. It is Kevin's name. The thing in the mud is Yossi, and it is saying his name. For Yossi, the whole world tips on its edge. The boat holds its shape. The man in it stays solid, where the girl had dissolved back into the leaves. He drags himself down the mud toward the water, bracing for the second it all turns out to be one more invention of his ruined mind, and the second never comes. Kevin is over the side, into the shallows, both arms around what is left of him. And he is solid. He is warm. He is real. Yossi feels those hands close around his bones and understands finally that he is not going to die out here. 21 days. After every reason to quit had come and gone, somebody turned a boat around and came back for him. He survived the last 3 weeks on 2 refusals that finally met on that bank. His own, never to lie down and let the ground have him, and Kevin's from the very first hour, never to leave him out there. 2 of the 4 had walked into the Amazon and walked back out. The other 2 were still somewhere in the trees, and the trees were not going to give them back. Yossi survived, but the jungle did not give him back whole. He spent 3 months in a hospital, putting back together a body the rainforest had taken apart. The feet, the parasites, the starvation, the weight that was simply no longer there. He lived. The Amazon had spent 3 weeks trying to kill him, and missed by a margin almost too thin to measure. But the Christmas reunion never happened. And what became of the other 2? The men who walked in beside Yossi and chose the safe route away from the water. Carl and Marcus never reached the meeting place. Not that Christmas. Not ever. Search parties went out and found nothing. No shelters, no notes. No trace of either man at all. The gentle schoolteacher who couldn't bring himself to eat a monkey, and the stranger who lied his way into leading them all, both walked into the trees and never walked out. What happened on that overland route is a question with no answer to this day. The math is simple and brutal. The safe route, chosen out of fear, killed the 2 who took it. The river, the one thing they were all afraid of, carried out the 2 who faced it. Yossi could have spent the rest of his life as far from that place as a plane could carry him. He did the opposite. Years later, he went back. Back to the Bolivian Amazon, back toward the people who had pulled his friend from a river and made the rescue possible. And he stayed. He helped build an eco-lodge there and gave years to the communities near the place that had nearly killed him. And he never let go of Kevin, the friend who, against every rule of sense and probability, had turned a boat around and come back for him. So the next time you are certain you cannot take another step, remember the kid who dragged himself out of the Amazon on feet with no skin left. He had no training and no real reason to believe anyone was still coming. He kept moving anyway. And the only reason it mattered is that one friend, against all sense, kept coming back. If this story stayed with you, subscribing helps the channel keep finding the people who walked out of places no one should ever have walked out of. And if you think a jungle is the cruelest place a man can be lost, wait until you hear about the sailor who survived months adrift on the open ocean, hunting sharks with nothing but a dented water jug. That one is on screen now.